They say Thanksgiving is a day dedicated to gratitude and family. Yet just as I placed the final dish on the table, the one I had paid for, my husband stood up, struck his glass, and handed me the divorce papers in front of everyone. "Can you gather your things after dinner?" he asked. What he did not realize was that the house he considered his domain still had only one name on the deed, mine. I said nothing, merely smiled, took a seat, and passed him the cranberry sauce. 2 days later, the house was sold, and when he came home, he found a for sale sign in the yard and no place to go. And you should see what happened afterward. Before we begin, tell me where you are tuning in from. I am Joanna Caldwell, 54 years old, and for the past 20 years, every dollar I earned had a purpose. After my first marriage fell apart when I was 30, Jason left me with Rachel, $2,000 in savings, and nothing else. I managed to move forward. I worked double shifts as a cashier, then as an assistant manager, and finally as a branch manager at First Southern Bank. I saved, budgeted, and invested wisely. I brewed coffee at home instead of going to Starbucks. I drove my Honda Civic for 15 years because dependability mattered more than appearance. By the time I was 40, I had saved enough to buy this home. An arts and crafts bungalow in North Raleigh with a wraparound porch and enough bedrooms for Rachel to return. I moved into the university neighborhood without feeling cramped. When I met Michael 3 years later at a mutual friend's barbecue, I was finally ready to share my life, not to rebuild it. Michael was charming and confident, a marketing executive with a warm laugh and stories that could light up a room. "You are a breath of fresh air," he told me on the first night when I admitted I had never been to France and did not care much about designer labels. What I did not realize then was how his compliments about my simplicity would later turn into criticism of my frugality. How would he move into the home I had bought on my own? And how would we start calling it our house? Without ever discussing adding his name to the deed, I was so determined to maintain boundaries after Jason that I told him bluntly the house was mine, legally and financially. He smiled and said, "Of course, darling, whatever makes you comfortable." But comfort became a weapon. My careful budget was called stinginess. My home-cooked meals were not ambitious enough to entertain guests. Rachel was the first to notice and came to visit less often. She watched Michael with quiet suspicion. "He wants to claim things he has not earned," she warned me. Yet I was so tired of being alone and strong that I ignored the warning signs, like how he started calling himself the owner when I introduced myself to new neighbors. How often did I roll my eyes when I checked the sale prices at the grocery store? This Thanksgiving, I had thrown myself into preparing everything with the hope of bridging the growing gap I felt. I woke up at 5 in the morning to brine the turkey, make fresh cranberry sauce with extra orange zest, because Michael's sister loved it that way. I had even taken time off from work on Tuesday and Wednesday to polish the silverware that had not seen the light of day since my grandmother passed away. The dining room practically gleamed from my efforts. White linen tablecloth, fresh flowers, fine china. Rachel arrived early to help, quiet and watchful as always. She said, "Mom, you look tired," while touching my cheek. "Are you sleeping well?" The truth was I hadn't slept properly in months. Michael's mood had shifted in recent weeks, becoming sharper and more critical. On Monday, he complained about my emotional distance, saying I seem more passionate about balancing my client's finances than about our relationship. Yesterday, he accused me of being ungrateful for his patience with my dull lifestyle, though I chalked it up to stress. His company had undergone restructuring, and although his job was safe, the pressure was intense. I told myself we would get through it. We always did. That was what marriage was about, right? Overcoming challenges together. I must have been crazy not to see it coming when Jason insisted on hosting his family this year. A break from our usual routine, he said. Laura's aunt is getting older, he reasoned, and Liam needs to experience a genuine family Thanksgiving. Liam, Jason's 16-year-old son from his first marriage, was the sweetest boy, always helping with the dishes and polite as ever, though lately he seemed quieter, more withdrawn. I worried that he was struggling with the divided loyalty of shared custody, not realizing he was watching his father with the same guarded eyes as Rachel did. The guests began arriving at 11 o'clock. Sarah, Michael's sister, came with her husband and their twin daughters, along with her brother Tom and his wife. Laura's aunt was already complaining about the journey from Charlotte. Rachel set the mood with soft jazz and moved around with appetizers while I finished the gravy. Everything seemed normal, perfectly normal and utterly exhausting. When we gathered around the table, I felt that blend of pride and fatigue that comes with organizing something beautiful. The turkey was golden brown, the stuffing scented with sage and celery. I had placed seating cards to separate the cousins who often fought. Laura's aunt was seated where she could hear the conversations better, and I had made sure Rachel and Liam were sitting close to me. That was the only seating request I had made to Michael before starting. Just then, Michael stood with a dramatic air and announced that we were about to begin. I wanted to suggest a toast. He raised his glass of water. He never drank at family gatherings, always preserving his image of perfect control. For Joanna, who works so hard to ensure everything goes smoothly, although sometimes I wish she invested as much effort in our marriage as she does in this dinner. The remark hit the room like a cold breeze. Laura's aunt shifted uneasily. Rachel's eyes met mine across the table, her expression darkening. But I smiled and took Michael's hand. We would get through this. We would talk later privately as mature adults. Then he continued, setting down the glass and pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket with a practiced flourish. I have something to give Joanna. Divorce papers, right here in front of the whole family, on Thanksgiving, in my dining room, in my house, at my table. I think it is time for both of us to be honest about what this marriage has become. His voice carried that confident tone that once attracted me. Joanna, you have shown repeatedly that you value financial security more than emotional connection, that you cannot leave your first marital trauma behind to truly commit to this one. My hands did not tremble as I took the envelope. Years of working in banking had taught me to stay composed under pressure. I simply looked over the papers and noted the lawyer's name. Someone who does not... I recognized him, not as the family lawyer who had handled my first divorce. The house kept addressing me at the table as if I were invisible. It would be necessary to take care of it regardless of what the deeds stated. We both knew I had contributed substantially to its upkeep and improvement. Rachel suddenly stood up, and her chair scraped loudly against the wooden floor. Dad always said you should never trust a man who has to announce his contributions. Sit down, Rachel, Michael commanded her firmly. This really does not concern you, I whispered softly, carefully pushing the papers aside. Let us have dinner. We can discuss this afterward. Michael flushed with anger. There is nothing to discuss. I want you out of my house by Sunday. My house. Those words echoed inside my mind but never reached my lips. I served the turkey, cutting pieces methodically, passing plates, asking about cranberry sauce preferences. My actions were automatic, refined after years of dealing with challenging situations at the bank. Angry clients, denied loans, foreclosure notices. I had learned that maintaining dignity during crises resolves more problems than anger does. The meal passed in an uncomfortable silence broken only by forced small talk. Laura's aunt inquired about Rachel's job in Charlotte. Tom mentioned his daughter's upcoming wedding. I responded when addressed, asked the right questions, and observed everything. The way Liam looked at me and his father with worried eyes was unforgettable. Michael's victorious expression slowly shifted to confusion as I showed no sign of reaction. My dining room, so carefully decorated, suddenly resembled the setting of a crime scene where a slow murder was happening politely over mashed potatoes and a green bean casserole. After dessert, a homemade pumpkin pie topped with fresh whipped cream, since Michael insisted that store-bought pies never tasted right. The family began to scatter. Plates clattered in the kitchen while Rachel bossed the cleanup with efficient determination. I excused myself to my bedroom, locked the door behind me, and calmly packed a bag to spend the night elsewhere. My financial documents were already secured in the safe of my office, including the house deed, investment portfolios, and emergency fund details. I had learned after Jason left to keep my security close. Checking my purse, I made sure I had the number of Ibeti, my college friend turned real estate agent who had helped me buy this house 10 years ago. Now I would soon appreciate the irony of her assisting in selling it. When I left with my suitcase in hand, Michael was in the living room, sharing stories with his family while sipping whiskey, his first drink of the day. Now that appearances no longer mattered, he looked at me with a mix of feelings. Satisfaction mingled with confusion. "I will stay at the residence," I said calmly. "My attorney will get in touch." Your attorney nearly laughed out loud. "Dear Joanna, you cannot afford a lawyer like mine. I suggest you accept the terms I am offering." I looked at him, really looked, clearly seeing for the first time who he had become, or perhaps who he had always been. "We will find out soon enough," I murmured quietly. Rachel appeared immediately by my side, grabbing her own coat. "I am taking Mom," she declared without asking. When we reached the door, Liam suddenly spoke from his corner of the room. "Thank you for everything, Joanna, for always being so kind." His father shot him a sharp look, but the boy held my gaze. His eyes were sorrowful and understanding. I nodded, gently touched his cheek, and stepped out through the front door I had chosen. The house had been painted and maintained for 10 years. The November air was crisp, filled with the scent of wood smoke drifting from neighbors' chimneys. I stopped on the porch I had renovated last spring, reflecting on what Michael had said earlier inside about gratitude and family. He was right about one thing. Thanksgiving did involve gratitude. I was thankful for my upbringing, my career, my daughter. I was grateful for having the foresight to keep my finances separate, to preserve my independence, even within marriage. And I was thankful for the lesson I had learned the hard way was that having a deed registered under your name is worth more than 1,000 spoken promises of partnership. As Rachel escorted me away from the house that I still legally owned, my mind was already turning to logistics, not filled with pain but with a sense of release. I planned to call IBET first thing tomorrow morning. The real estate market was booming, so we could list the property on Monday and close the deal before Christmas if we set a price aggressive enough to attract cash buyers. Michael believed I had humiliated him. In some sense, I had. Yet public shame only stings if you think you deserve it. My years of quiet strength were not weakness, but preparation, precisely for this moment. Tomorrow, the paperwork would begin. Tomorrow, everything would shift. Tomorrow, my silent planning would speak louder than any argument we might have had. Tonight, however, I would sleep in a hotel bed with fresh sheets and the odd comfort of knowing that sometimes the best revenge is simply taking back what was always yours. Telling and preparing this story took a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, please subscribe to our channel. It means a great deal to us. Now, back to the story. Rachel insisted on coming into the motel room to help me settle in. She moved with agility and efficiency, the same energy you would bring when heading to her office. Accounting in Charlotte. She unpacked the suitcase while I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dull pictures of the motel without truly seeing them. "Mom," Joanna finally said, "what are you going to do?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Jason's contact. "I am going to make some calls." Rachel settled into the chair opposite me with the familiar click of her heels on the tile floor. "First, you need to hear something. Do you remember when I told you Michael seemed different? How he had started asking strange questions about money?" I nodded while my thumb hovered over Jason's number. 2 weeks ago, he tried to get information from me. He asked about joint property laws in North Carolina, whether assets acquired during marriage automatically become community property. Rachel's eyes locked with mine. I told her it depends on the deed. She did not like that answer. My heart stumbled. This was not a spontaneous decision fueled by vacation stress. It had been planned, and so had my response, though I hadn't realized that until now. I hit the call button, and Jason answered on the second ring. "Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Tell me you're calling because the pie turned out perfect, and Michael finally admitted you're a cooking goddess." I spoke slowly. "Jason, I need to sell the house." Silence. Silence. "The house? Your house?" "Yes, as soon as possible. Only buyers in..." "Effective." More quietness followed. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted from that of a friend to a real estate agent. "What exactly am I dealing with here? How long have we been talking about?" "Days, not weeks." Rachel said, "Tell me everything." I shook my head but softened my tone. "It's complicated. Leave, Michael. We are getting divorced." He handed me the papers tonight in front of everyone at the Thanksgiving dinner. He has no idea the house was never owned jointly. That son of I bet got caught. Okay, I can handle this. The market is insane. We have investors looking for quick flips. If we price it right, we might get offers by Monday. "A flexible price," I said. "I will accept a price cut if needed." "No way," Rachel interrupted, standing up. "Mom, you have invested too much in that house to..." "It's just a house, Rachel." I kept my voice steady. What matters is keeping my options open. After finishing the call with eBet, I opened my banking app. Everything was in order, separate accounts that Michael never accessed, investments he was unaware of, the emergency fund I'd been building since my first divorce. My financial planning clients would admire my cautious approach to blended families. Rachel sat stiffly beside me on the bed. "You have been planning this, haven't you?" "Not this exactly, but protecting yourself." "I had been planning this ever since your father left," I confessed. Not because I expected Michael to do it, but because I realized financial independence is the only true security. The next morning, I left the motel and went to my new temporary home, a furnished apartment that my partner Dave had available for short-term rent. It was bare, but clean, a provisional space while I figured out the next chapter in my life. Rachel stayed until noon, helping me organize my few belongings. As she was about to leave, she paused at the door. "You know what is strange? I spent years angry at Dad for leaving us broke, but watching you rebuild, seeing how you refuse to rely completely on any man again, taught me something far more valuable than financial education." "What is that?" I asked. "That self-love and self-reliance are one and the same." That afternoon, I called my office. As a financial consultant working from home, I set my own schedule, but my clients deserve to be informed about my situation. "Only personal matters," I told my assistant Karen. "I will handle the calls, but face-to-face meetings will need to be rescheduled." Exactly at 5 o'clock, my phone rang, showing Michael's number. I let it go to voicemail. "More than 24 hours have passed. This silence is childish. Call me so we can discuss reasonable terms. We need to take care of this." I was away from home, but I was willing to be fair with the division. Despite everything, as if I had done something wrong, as if choosing to protect my own safety somehow made me the antagonist in their story. I deleted the message and opened a box I had brought from home, the one holding important documents. Among them was the deed carefully placed between protective plastic sheets. Only my name appeared in precise legal handwriting, Joanna Marie Caldwell. No signature from Joanna Caldwell and Michael Caldwell, not even room for theirs. The house had been my achievement, my symbol of recovery. Now it was becoming my way out. That night, Bet called me with updates. 3 investors were already interested. 2 wanted to visit the next day. 1 was offering a blind bid based solely on comparable sales. "Schedule the visits," I said quietly, not wanting Michael to know yet. Speaking of Michael, Bet hesitated. "Sarah mentioned during Pilates that morning she had a big party at your place last night. Something about celebrating freedom. My stomach tightened. Yes, he was already treating my house like his bachelor pad where he partied. I told her, his freedom has an expiration date. Rachel also called, her voice strained with controlled anger. I stopped by the house today. Mom has changed the locks. Of course she did. Michael was very meticulous about claiming his territory, but locks could be changed again. However, the records remained unchanged unless they were properly filed. That night, I created a list of actions to take. First, accept the highest cash offer for the house. Second and third, document all the minimal marital assets. What's strange about betrayal is how it sharpens one's priorities. Michael believed he was ending something. Instead, he was freeing me to begin something completely different. A life where I would trust my instincts without hesitation, where I would no longer mistake the charm of pretense for genuine character. Morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting light on floating dust particles. While sipping coffee, my phone displayed 5 more missed calls from Michael. Each call revealed his growing realization that things were not unfolding as he had planned. On Monday, Ibtisam called with news of an offer. A cash bid had arrived, with a condition of closing within 30 days. It was $10,000 less than asking price, but all cash without inspection contingencies. I told her to accept it immediately without doubt. Certainly. Probably. We could do this. I am confident. 2 hours later, Michael finally contacted me. He had been waiting. Joanna. Relief softened his tone. At last. Look, I think we both said things in the heat of the moment. Maybe we should meet face to face and reach a fair agreement. I am willing to be generous with the house. The house is not yours to be generous with, I whispered, pausing. What does that mean? It means I have visited it. Cash sale. Closing in 30 days. The silence stretched so long that I checked if the call had been disconnected. You cannot do that, he said at last. We are married. Property owned jointly. Verify the deed, Michael. Only my name appears. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, harsher. A spiteful woman after everything I have done. I ended the call gently but firmly. My hands did not shake. My heart did not race. For the first time in months, I felt completely calm. The situation had shifted, and this time I held all the cards. On Tuesday afternoon, Rachel confirmed what I had suspected. Michael was spiraling downward. He had driven past the house repeatedly and noticed several vehicles parked out front. Laughter could be heard on the dead-end street. He is throwing some kind of party, she told me, in broad daylight. There were already empty beer cans in the recycling bin. I pictured Michael in my living room, hosting at the house I had picked, tile by tile, paint color by paint color. A part of me wanted to drive there and demand my space by force, but that was exactly what he wanted, a dramatic confrontation, a scene he could use as evidence of my instability. Instead, I signed the sales contract. The EBET office felt familiar. We had finalized the first home purchase here. Now we were doing it again, although the mood was different. The document was finalized. You are doing the right thing, EBET assured me as she placed my initials on every page. A clean break. A fresh start. How did you know this was the right choice? I asked. She put down the pen, thoughtful. Why are you signing these papers without trembling hands? You are not crying or hesitating. That is how I know you have already mourned this marriage. You are simply finishing the paperwork. I thought about that as I drove back to my temporary apartment. How long had I been grieving? The first time Michael corrected my expenses in public, when did he stop asking about my day? The moment he suggested I consider a less demanding career because successful men do not need hardworking wives. My phone rang. It was Rachel. Mom, I just spoke with Liam. Michael is going to take him apartment hunting this weekend. He is bragging that he kept the house in the divorce and now needs a bigger place because he is free. Poor Liam, trapped between knowing the truth and loyalty to his father. Let him look, I said. Apartments are good practice for his future rental applications. Rachel laughed, sharp and surprised. Mom, you are a little scary when you get like this. Calm and strategic, as if Dad never saw you coming. 30 minutes later, my phone vibrated with an unknown number. A voicemail notification appeared. I put it on speaker. Joanna, this is Laura, your aunt. Michael. His voice was deep from age and years of smoking. He wanted to apologize for what he witnessed on Thursday. It was harsh, even by Michael's usual standards, as he always had a certain tendency. His mother spoiled him terribly, you know, and he never truly understood the consequences. A brief pause. Anyway, I will be in town until Sunday if you need anything. And do not worry about family loyalty. I have 3 nephews and only one conscience. I saved the message. Allies emerged in the most unexpected places. On Wednesday, the house officially entered a pending status, and Bet sent you a notification. The listing now shows as pending. I wait for Michael's response in 3, 2, points, point. The call came in less than an hour. What on earth is going on? Michael's voice was tense with barely contained anger. Pending sale. You cannot sell the house without my permission. I do not need your permission, Michael. Check the county records. You will find them very enlightening. You think you are clever, do not you? We are married. I have rights. You have the right to find your own place. I will make sure your belongings are packed properly. My belongings? Joanna, I live there. Lived. Corrected himself. Past tense. The buyer takes possession on the 1st of December. That gives you about 4 weeks to arrange new accommodation. His breathing was heavy on the phone. You cannot do this. My lawyer says, your lawyer has seen the deed? Because mine certainly has. The prenuptial agreement clearly stated that Joanna was waiving any claims to premarital property. There was another pause. I could hear him trying to find a way to twist things, to challenge the improvements I had made to the house. I paid for the furniture, the sound system, the television. Every removable item he is welcome to take. Anything structural was my expense. The pool renovation, my receipt, my check, my tax deduction. His voice grew darker. Have you been planning this all along? No, Michael, I was just protecting myself. There is a difference. I ended the call feeling oddly empty, not victorious, merely resolved, like finishing a tough novel whose ending was unavoidable. On Thursday, my favorite surprise arrived. A text from Liam sent from his mother's phone. I want you to know I feel sorry for what Dad did. I always liked you better than his current girlfriend. There was a pause. You've been seeing someone since August. Her name is Marisa. She works as a waitress at that place on Fallowville Street. That night, Rachel came over with Thai food and moral support. We ate in the small courtyard of my rental apartment. The autumn air carried the scent of forest smoke and the approaching winter. Do you think he's reconsidering? Rachel asked, stabbing her pate. Michael is having his first doubts, probably the earliest genuine thoughts about the consequences of his actions over the years. Rachel smiled. Do you remember when I was 12 years old and I failed that math exam? Do you recall how you made me call my teacher and explain why I had not prepared? First, you tidied your room to feel accomplished before the difficult talk. The point is, said Rachel, you never let me avoid the consequences. You taught me responsibility, but somehow Michael has been dodging it his entire life. We sat in a comfortable silence, surrounded by the sounds of the suburban evening. Dogs barking, car doors shutting, distant laughter. Everyday life went on while mine was reshaping like a building under construction. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom, Michael's brother. Sarah told me what is happening. Just so you know, we always liked you better. Take care, Yo-Yo. While the house was being sold, while the divorce papers were moving forward, while Michael's carefully built world started to crumble, I discovered something profound about silent strength. It was not about revenge, nor public humiliation or dramatic confrontations. It was about having your documents in order when you needed them, keeping your finances separate and your options wide open, building a life that could not be dismantled by someone else's betrayal. On Friday, I had contacted another real estate agent, not eBet, but someone else. Michael started looking for options for permanent housing. He wanted something smaller, simpler, completely my own. No guest rooms filled with awkward silences, no dining rooms for 12 people when I used to eat alone. That evening, I took out my grandmother's china from the box, which I had inherited and kept because Michael thought it was old-fashioned. I set a place for one on the small table in my rental house. I poured fine wine into my best glassware and toasted to the woman I was becoming. A woman who understood that sometimes the most powerful move is not a dramatic act, but signing a document, a name on a deed, a decision to stop negotiating respect in a relationship where respect should be freely given. The house would be sold, the divorce finalized. Michael would eventually realize that the kingdom he claimed was never his, and I would do what I have always done, rebuild, this time stronger, with clearer boundaries and a sharper vision. The papers did not just end a marriage. They confirmed a truth I always knew, but never dared to enforce, that self-love sometimes resembles paperwork, filed silently, efficiently, without an audience. Michael would learn the hard way, like all important lessons. On the following Monday morning, I sat in my car facing the house and watched the trucks arrive. The move I had arranged was nearing its final stages. 3 weeks had passed since Thanksgiving, and the closing date was fast approaching. Michael believed he had a full month to organize his next relocation. He was mistaken by about 18 hours. That morning, I had contacted the sheriff's office. My soon-to-be ex-husband has illegally changed the locks on my property. I have the deed and pending sale documents to prove ownership. The deputy was understanding. We can accompany you to retrieve your belongings and ensure he leaves the premises. I had informed Laura first. Can we expedite the closing? I have already moved things forward. She replied. The buyer is eager. We can close tomorrow if you are ready. Now, seeing the sheriff's official vehicle pull up behind my car, I felt strangely calm. Rachel had offered to come along, but I sensed this was something I needed to handle alone. Deputy Martinez had kindly eyes and reading glasses perched on his head. Mrs. Caldwell, do you have the documents? I handed over the deed and the pending sales contract. He examined them carefully before nodding. Let's proceed. Michael answered the door on the third knock, still in his pajamas despite the midday sun. His face shifted through a range of emotions: surprise, confusion, anger. Before settling into the carefully controlled expression I knew all too well. Oh, what is this about? I came to collect my belongings and to give you an official eviction notice. The house will be handed over tomorrow to the new owners. Her laugh was sharp, filled with disbelief. She couldn't speak seriously. Assistant Martinez stepped forward. Sir, we need to discuss the ownership of this property. This is my home. Actually, sir, the assistant said as he held up the deed, this property belongs solely to Joanna Caldwell. You have 48 hours to remove your possessions. Michael's expression darkened. She cannot do this. She is my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected, and I am allowed to do this. I am doing it. The new owners take possession tomorrow. He turned to me, and for a moment I saw genuine panic. This is revenge. It's not legal. My lawyer should have reviewed the deed before encouraging you to change the locks. I interrupted him. Assistant Martinez, I will need 1 hour to pack my personal items. After that, can someone make sure the locks are changed back? "Of course, ma'am." As I walked through the rooms I had decorated, painted, and cared for, I took only what belonged to me. Clothes, personal photographs, my grandmother's silver tea set. The furniture could stay. I did not want anything that held memories of this marriage. From the garage, I heard Michael on the phone, his voice growing increasingly sharp. "She cannot, the prenuptial agreement, find someone who can stop this." Liam appeared at the door of in the kitchen, fully dressed despite having spent the night at Michael's house. Her eyes flickered between the sound of her father's footsteps in the garage and my systematic packing. "I can feel how he has treated you," she whispered. "It is not your fault, dear. May I ask you something?" She moved a little closer. "That woman Dad has been seeing, Marisa, has been here twice since Thanksgiving. He told her she might help redecorate once the divorce is finalized." I took this in at once. "Thank you for telling me. Will you be okay, Rachel? And you?" "We always have been. We always will be." I gently touched her cheek. "And you are welcome to visit me. Rachel will give you my new address." When I finished packing, Assistant Martinez walked me to the car. Michael stood on the porch, arms crossed, his confident facade finally cracking. "Will you hear from my lawyer about this?" "Certainly," I replied, placing the last box in the trunk. "But tomorrow you will have to talk to the new owners. The Hendersons seem reasonable, but they do not like overnight guests treating their property like a rental." I left him there shouting threats that held no weight because I had built my defenses carefully, silently, legally. That night, Rachel and I ordered Chinese food to eat in my modest rental apartment. "I saw Liam after the school," she said while breaking her chopsticks. "I heard that Dad spent the entire afternoon on the phone trying to find a place to stay. Apparently, Marissa's complex has a rule against overnight guests." Karma works quickly, I thought, recalling how Michael had started his exit plan months ago with his new girlfriend. "Do you know what surprised me?" Rachel went on. "Liam said he felt relieved. Seeing Dad throw the divorce papers at you was the moment he realized everything he had suspected about his father was true." "What did he feel exactly?" "That Dad cares more about looking generous than actually being generous, more about controlling the story than telling the truth." My phone buzzed. It was a message from Betty. "Closing confirmed for tomorrow at 10 in the morning. The buyer's agent confirmed that you are the current owner. Water, electricity, gas, everything in your name. I had no idea you were so smart with these matters." I forwarded the message to Ebedi. "That is not smart. That's careful. Those are very different things." Rachel looked at me as I finished my General Tso's chicken. "Mom." "Yes, I'm proud of you." The words settled around us like a warm blanket. They weren't dramatic or vengeful, just the genuine pride of seeing Fee, someone you want to protect, finally taking care of herself. That night, I went to sleep in the unfamiliar rental bed, thinking about tomorrow's closing. Michael would call. He would probably threaten me. With more legal steps underway, by midday, the name on the deed would switch from mine to the Hendersons. Clean, definitive, and thoroughly done. I had completely withdrawn from that chapter of my life. Sometimes the most powerful statement is not shouted out loud, but quietly sealed within a legal document that changes everything. Outside, the rain began falling, an autumn storm that perfectly matched the symbolism of tomorrow's closing ceremony. It was time to wash away the past, start anew, and brace myself for whatever came next. I turned off the light, feeling content with the trail of paperwork I had created and preserved. The next morning, Michael would discover what the rest of us already understood. Ownership is not proclaimed with grand gestures or public claims. It is established through fine print on official documents quietly filed long before anyone challenges its authenticity. The final meeting lasted under an hour. I sat across from the Hendersons, a young couple eager to renovate the home that had once been my dream. I signed away chapters of my life. The check from the sale was deposited directly into my account, one that Michael did not even know existed. "You will love the garden," I told them. "The roses are delicate but worth the effort, and the water pressure on the second floor kicks in strong after about 30 seconds. Please be patient." After the formalities, I handed them a manila envelope containing records of previous repairs, including details about the heating, ventilation, and the air conditioning was checked in September, and I hesitated before taking another bag upstairs. This might sound odd, but I need to leave something inside the house. In the kitchen drawer on the far left side, it is the second one from the top. "Could you please place it there for me?" They exchanged puzzled glances but agreed without hesitation. "What does it contain?" Mr. Henderson inquired. "A letter for anyone who might need to find it. It took me 3 days to write this letter, reviewing it amid calls from clients and real estate paperwork. Not angry, the harshest words are easy to write. Not accusatory, those come naturally too, but honest and sincere. This is the end. Michael, by the time you discover this, I suppose you will have finally looked in the drawer where I always kept important documents and which you never bothered to check, too busy making assumptions about what belonged to you. I left this here instead of sending it by mail because this house embodies everything that went wrong in our last 3 years. You moved physically, but never emotionally. You redecorated without consideration. You changed the locks without permission. You claimed ownership without any paperwork. I am not writing out of revenge. I am writing for clarity. Throughout our marriage, you tried to make me smaller. My budgets became embarrassing frugality. My career achievements were flaunted. My independence felt threatening because you confused control with love. Home was never about money. It was about safety, the kind I built by myself after my first marriage ended. You tried to tear it down with cruelty disguised as honesty. I hope you find what you are looking for, but not by taking something that belongs to someone else. Joanna Rachel helped me move to my new place the following weekend, a cozy duplex close to downtown Raleigh. 2 bedrooms, a manageable yard, and just a short walk from cafes and shops. I paid in cash from the proceeds of selling the old house. No mortgage, no shared deed, just mine alone. You look different, Rachel remarked as she unpacked books in my office. Lighter. I am. Holding on to grudges turns out to weigh more than facing the consequences. She picked up my copy of The Great Gatsby. Speaking of consequences, Liam messaged me. Michael has been staying at his office since things with Marisa did not work out. The building management says it is only temporary. I pictured Michael sleeping on the office furniture, and the irony was impossible to miss. And your stepbrother says you plan to spend the holidays with his mother this year. Does she want to visit you the next time she comes to town? My phone buzzed. Beth, turn on Channel 5, I said. They are doing a story about vacation home sales. You appear anonymously. I switched on the television. The reporter was standing in front of my old house, now decorated for Christmas by the Hendersons. In an unusual Christmas sale, this rally house was sold only a few weeks after it went on the market, showing that sometimes major life changes can spark immediate action. Rachel raised her glass of wine. To quick decisions. To the decisions delayed far too long, I corrected her. 2 weeks later, I was adjusting the furniture when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Joanna, it's Marisa. Her voice carefully measured. I work with Michael. I found your number through him. I just wanted to apologize. Apologize for what? I asked. For being involved with a married man. He told me you were separated, that the divorce was mutual. I sank into my new reading chair. The timing mattered less than the honesty, right? She moved into my house yesterday. She told my landlord we are a couple. She paused. Are you okay? More than okay, I replied sincerely. Thanks for asking. And Marisa, put everything in writing. She hung up, probably regretting the call. I disliked her future, watching Michael's charm turn into control and his honesty shift to criticism. But that was no longer my burden. On Christmas Eve, I invited Rachel, Liam, and maybe a small, simple dinner, clean and mine. Liam brought cookies his mother helped him make. Dad is decorating Marissa's apartment, he mentioned casually. He says it's time to start over. Apparently, he's decorating with furniture from various places, Rachel added. Liam caught the hint immediately. Are you talking about your mother's belongings? She took things from the house. She only took what belonged to her, I said diplomatically, leaving behind what belonged to the new owners. While we were tidying up, my phone alerted me to a voicemail from Michael. I deleted it without listening. Rachel noticed and asked, "Aren't you curious?" I shook my head. Not anymore. I washed another dish. For years, I had been consumed by curiosity about his feelings, his needs, his point of view. It turns out that curiosity without any response is just care in disguise. That night, alone in my serene home, I pondered the strange equations of loss and gain. I had lost a marriage, a house I cherished deeply, and 3 years of hope that Michael would see me clearly. But I had gained clarity and confidence instead. I realized that silently filed papers can speak louder than publicly staged scenes. Ownership is not about possession, but responsibility. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to leave with your dignity intact. Outside, the Christmas lights twinkled on neighbors' homes, some elaborately decorated, others simple, each chosen by their owners. I turned off my reading lamp, content knowing tomorrow would bring its own opportunities. Michael would learn the hard way, as all important lessons do. Meanwhile, I would live thoughtfully and carefully, on my own terms. November returned once more with the dependable transformation that autumn brings. I had promised myself not to dwell on last year's disaster, yet memories are stubborn guests who arrive uninvited. The difference this time was that fear did not take hold of me. The kitchen in my home smelled of sage and butter, but the preparations were for 6 people, not 20. Quality over quantity had become the new principle guiding my Thanksgiving. Rachel arrived early, bringing Liam along. They had carpooled from Charlotte, where Liam was spending the weekend amid divided custody arrangements. He had grown noticeably over the year. His voice was deeper now, though his eyes retained that same calmness. "Can I help with anything?" Swing asked as he washed his hands at the sink. "Can you tell me about school? How is your final year going?" "Good, better than last year." He hesitated. Dad officially moved in with Marissa in May. They are talking about getting married once the divorce is finalized. Rachel shot me a warning glance, but I just smiled. "I hope they are happy." "Do you really mean that?" Liam studied me carefully. "I mean, I hope everyone finds peace," I clarified, including Michael. Ibetta appeared next, carrying a casserole of green beans and her usual sharp wit. "Happy Freedom Day!" Drenia shouted from the doorway. It had been 1 year since the time you pulled off the biggest, a triumph for property rights in the history of the suburbs. "As subtle as ever. Go away," Rachel laughed. The last to arrive was Laura's aunt, Michael's 72-year-old aunt who had unexpectedly become a friend. She brought her famous nut pie and her candid remarks. "You look well rested, dear," she said, settling on the kitchen counter. "I see Joanna Caldwell is finally sleeping soundly." The compliment touched me more than I had expected. Around this time last year, I had been overwhelmed by anxiety and stubborn determination. Now I was simply happy. As we gathered around my 6-person dining table, not meant for 12, I noticed small differences from the year before. No greeting cards were needed. No seating plans to manage egos. No fancy dishes to impress. Just my grandmother's everyday plates and honest conversation. Liam helped me carve the turkey while Rachel and Yvette prepared the side dishes. "Mom showed me tutorials on YouTube," he admitted. "She said I should know how to carve properly." "Your mother is right," I told him. "Life skills matter more than first impressions." When we finally sat down to eat, Laura raised her glass. She proposed a toast to Ruana, who taught us all that grace under pressure looks like preparation meeting opportunity. And in finding your own meaning of family, Rachel added as she squeezed my hand. The meal was filled with laughter. Laura shared chilling tales about her clients. Liam talked about his college applications. Rachel mentioned her promotion at the accounting firm. Dolores made remarks that had everyone laughing, including playful jabs at her absent nephew. Michael always confused being right with being respected, I thought, while we ate cake. It took me decades to realize this because he learned it from my sister, his mother. She also could not tell the difference. After dinner, while the others watched football, I stepped into my small backyard. The November air carried the scent of wood smoke from neighboring chimneys. Through the kitchen window, I could see the family I had chosen, not bound by marriage or even blood in Ibete's case, but linked by something stronger, mutual respect. A penny for your thoughts? Rachel joined me, bringing 2 cups of coffee. I was only thinking about the past year and how frightening it was to walk away from that dinner. But now I understand that moving towards something better meant leaving first. Rachel leaned against the railing beside me. Liam told me something in the car. He said watching how I handled my divorce showed him what he wants in his own relationships. Someone who treats him with dignity, even during conflicts. That is what he said. She actually expressed it better. Something about how true love does not announce itself at tables, nor demands proof through possessions. Nearby, I heard the loud laughter of Ebet, followed by the calmer one of Liam. Most likely, Laura was sharing another family story of those that reveal the truth through mockery. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I was just about to ignore it, but recognized the area code, Marisa's. Joanna, this is Marisa. Happy Thanksgiving. I wanted you to know that we are no longer engaged. I discovered some things. Anyway, thank you for last year's advice. I have everything written down. Happy holidays. I showed it to Rachel, who scoffed. Karma operates in mysterious ways. It operates in predictable ways, I corrected. The same patterns, different circumstances. Later, while everyone helped with the cleaning, Liam pulled me aside. Can I ask you something? When did you realize that what we had with Dad really ended? I thought carefully as I stopped hoping he would see me clearly and began seeing myself clearly. How do you do that? The part about seeing clearly, usually with distance and documents. I smiled at his confused expression. Sometimes understanding comes with documents, Liam, but it really arrives when you stop making excuses for someone else's behavior. We joined the others in the living room. Laura was telling This is the story of the young man's first girlfriend. Michael was 18 years old and already claiming shared properties as entirely his own. The girl was clever, receipts carefully kept. Everyone laughed, including Liam, who might have started noticing familiar patterns in his father that he had not seen before. As the guests were getting ready to leave, each shared some words they would carry with them. Laura said, "Next year at this time, dear, I will bring bourbon." Ebet promised to organize next year's charity auction. "This social circle needs more backbone and fewer compliments," she insisted. Liam asked, "Can I visit you next weekend? Dad is moving his things, and I would prefer to be somewhere peaceful." Rachel stayed behind to help with the final cleaning. We worked at a comfortable pace, loading the dishwasher, wiping counters, putting away the pieces. "You have truly found your rhythm," I observed. "I have," she confirmed. Last year, she was running on fumes and sheer will. This year, she is simply herself. I imagine Michael somewhere in our suburbs, perhaps carving his own turkey, maybe explaining why his signature could not guarantee what was never his to begin with. I did not feel satisfaction picturing his discovery. No triumph, just a quiet acknowledgement that justice often arrives through paperwork rather than declarations. Later, sitting on my reading chair with chamomile tea, I opened my laptop. My inbox showed new messages waiting. Messages from clients scheduling appointments, end-of-year financial reviews. One matter caught my attention: learning from the lessons of last year. It involved a woman I had consulted 6 months earlier when she was dealing with her own marital struggles. I followed her advice to carefully check all property documents. She wrote back, "I discovered a few unexpected things. I did not make a scene. I simply arranged meetings with lawyers and accountants. Thank you for showing me that strength sometimes sounds like silence." I replied briefly, "Silence used strategically is not weakness. It is wisdom. I wish you clarity and peace." Before going to bed, I walked around my house, turning off the lights. Everything in this space had been chosen deliberately, owned with clarity, and maintained with care, without any unclear areas or assumptions about shared ownership, only the sharp clarity of knowing what belonged to me. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges: client meetings, holiday preparations, perhaps another visit from Liam, learning to navigate his father's limitations with grace instead of disappointment. But not tonight. Tonight I slept peacefully in a bed I had bought on my own, in a house I had acquired independently, with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had faced betrayal without bitterness and regained dignity without compromising character. The last thought before sleep claimed me was, "Thank you." Thank God for the documents that were carefully preserved by true friends, and for the wisdom to understand that sometimes the strongest response is not to fight back, but to keep moving, forward alone, happy and finally free. Next, we have 2 more incredible stories waiting just for you. All you need to do is click on the image you want to see, and it will tell its tale. None of them will disappoint.